there's a richness to older age that I've experienced that part of it comes from, you hope it comes from wisdom,
Yeah.
but a lot of it comes, I think, from an appreciation of life that comes from death and the experience of death of loved ones, friends, and it's bittersweet. It's not
Yeah,
just bitter; it's bittersweet.
You know, the book that I just published, Studying with Miss Bishop, is not a book I could have written as a young man.
Yeah.
And in fact, there's parts of it that I wrote years ago, but they were, dare I say it, they were wonderfully written.
Of course.
But they were the immediate impressions of things versus the reflection. And so, what I learned in taking, I wanted to do this book, and I thought it would be very easy to assemble. But then I said, and pardon me for saying this, my wife says this is this most embarrassing thing I could say. I wanted to write something that was perfect.
Yeah.
I wanted to write a book that was as good as I could possibly write it. And I wanted it to be short. I wanted it to be something you could sort of just enter into, without a huge investment. And so I began writing the damn thing, and I went through, I can't tell you how many drafts, 100 drafts of some pages. But what I wanted to do is to have, the story is then, but I'm now, and rather than it being like this, it's like that. And that, I realized, was the pleasure of the book, to be able to look back on yourself, on these teachers, to describe what happened, but then now, years later, to be able to, in a sense, present the resonances of that. And I think that is what people are responding to in the book. I've had the weirdest reaction. I've published a lot of books. This is not, I'm 70 years old. I'm an old timer. But I've never had this reaction. I get the same thing again and again. People say, the book came and I read it in one evening. I read it. I couldn't put it down. Cynthia Ozick, the great Jewish intellectual. I love Cynthia. She said, I got this and I read it all night. And so I think that people do, because they sort of say, yeah, they can enter into this, and it speaks very deeply to your own experience. Because I was the chairman of the NEA, so I spent an unholy.
That's the National Endowment of the Arts.
Yeah, the National Endowment. I spent an unholy amount of time talking to members of Congress. I was in the halls of Congress almost every day, and we were talking about these programs. And I went to this one senator and I said, "Look," I said, "I can guarantee you that the reason you're here," and I said, "because there was a teacher in high school," and he started, and I saw tears forming in his eyes. People who are successful in life, they know it's their own talents and everything else, but they also know that there were people who awakened to those talents, refined them, gave them the little push, gave them the advice. Because we all know lots of people with talent who've not made much of their life. They never found, in a sense, the ways of focusing their talent and everything else, and they just thrash around. A couple of days ago, an old friend of mine died. He died at 80, and one of the most talented guys I ever met. But he ended up in rural Washington, more or less in poverty, playing jazz in a nightclub, and he never found a way of his literary talents, his administrative talents, his musical talents, and making them, in a sense, vehicles for his own success and happiness.